trial continues. House leaders continue to weigh in on what should happen next. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi critical of the President Trump defense team.
I don't think they made the case. I think they disgraced themselves terribly.
Well, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says Democrats are wasting time trying to remove the president from office.
How many other things are not getting done because of all the focus is just on impeachment?
A vote likely in the next day or so on whether to proceed with calling witnesses or to call a vote on guilt or innocence. Governor Gavin Newsom calling for a safe, reliable utility that's more flexible to meet future demands.
Transformatively different than the one we currently have, particularly with PG&E. I have no interest in the existing management, the existing board. It has to be completely reimagined, completely transformed company.
Newsom says plans are being laid out for what he calls a 21st century utility focusing on customers, not shareholders. Mid-60s in the Bay Area, 40s in Lake Tahoe, mid-70s in L.A. Jeff Scott, California News.
Hurry! Time is running out on your chance to enter the Rocket Mortgage Super Bowl Squares sweepstakes. The largest official game of Super Bowl Squares ever with millions of dollars in prizes. And best of all, it's free to enter. Every score change during Super Bowl 54 pays out $50,000. That's right, touchdowns, field goals, safeties, even extra points. We'll draw one lucky winner from the corresponding square to win $50,000. It could be you! Plus, 2 grand prize winners will win $500,000 they could use toward their dream home. See rules and enter now at RocketMortgageSquares.com. Then tune in February 2nd to see if you win. Rocket Mortgage, official mortgage sponsor of Super Bowl 54.
Enter by January 30th, 2020. No purchase necessary. 18 years or older except Alabama, Nebraska, and Mississippi. Ends January 30th. Licensed all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. The NFL is not sponsored promotion in any way.
The Fullman Firm Affordable Debt Relief Attorneys, helping you end your debt and find financial freedom. If you've been sued for an unpaid debt of $10,000 or more, call 833-FULLMAN or visit FullmanFirm.com today for your free legal consultation. Calls to the creditors and letters won't help. Don't let debt collectors get a judgment behind your back. Don't let debt collectors take your hard-earned money. To stop judgments, wage garnishments, or bank levies, call 833-FULLMAN or visit FullmanFirm.com today for your free legal consultation. Don't play the debt collector's game alone. Hire a winning team. The Fullman Firm saved their clients millions of dollars in 2019. Some lawyers require large upfront payments. The Fullman Firm's payment plans make attorney representation affordable for you. Proceeding is not intended as a guarantee or estimate of the outcome of your case. Every case is unique and past results are not indicators of the success of your case. Take control of your financial future and call 833-FULLMAN or visit FullmanFirm.com now.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. As a reminder, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Just go to Viewpoint with Father John. And I enjoy your messages you sent me. It's really great. We get videos that we send you, and it's really a great community. So thanks for following us there. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help embrace and overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you of a place in Claremont called Claremont Pharmacy that's owned by Dr. Nikki Ho, my good friend, who handles all my prescriptions, particularly for my diabetic supplies. In fact, I picked up my new thing of Victoza yesterday, so got my shot, and my A1C is looking good. But if you want good old-fashioned service, just go to Claremont Pharmacy, and she is located on Indian Hill Boulevard and Arrow Highway in the city of Claremont. And then when you're down over there, just go down the street on Indian Hill to BC Cafe, also known as Kickback Jack's. Why they have two names, I don't know, but they give you enough food to feed two people on one plate, so they could have something to do with it. But if you want really good food at good prices, this is the place to go. And anyone who knows me knows that I eat there quite often. I'm called the King of BC Cafe because I love the food there. What can I say? And when Gabby goes with me, we'll split an order and still take food home. You can feed a village in the Philippines with all the food they give you. So my friends in the Philippines, when you come over here, you'll have food to take back with you to Cebu and wherever you're going to. A couple of things this evening. We've just, folks, we just got to start coming together. You know, the hostility that's getting out there where people just won't talk to each other at all. They just, they look at what letter goes behind your name politically, and I'm an independent, so I catch it from both sides. And we stop talking, and that's how we stop being Americans. We're still people who love this country. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. So let's come together and see what we can do as a solution instead of pointing fingers at each other and saying you're the problem, because nothing gets solved that way. It's time to get out of who's right and into what's right. And what's right is we have a country we love. And to love a country, that means you have to love the citizens. It doesn't matter if they're white, brown, yellow, red, purple. It doesn't matter. We're all in this together, and so we need to start acting like it. Tonight, I have a very exciting guest. I'm really glad to have him here. His name is Reginald H. Howard, and he is a mental health advocate. He's an influencer and an idealist. Whether it's through his mental healing podcast, but I have these rented lips this week, his paradigm-shifting book, or his emotionally connecting speeches, Reggie's story furthers his mission to not only impact his community, but people everywhere. He's just looking to serve and leave the world better than he found it. Boy, that just goes right in with what I said, didn't it? Well, Reggie, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on. In fact, you came up in a meeting last night I had been invited to. Someone is running for state assembly, and someone made the mistake of inviting me, and I mentioned that you're going to be a guest on my show tonight, and I said, what are you going to do about this to make this better for people? Because while there's a lot of mental health issues that take place, the communities that really get neglected are the brown and black communities. And I could prove that statistically, and also for someone who's worked in mental health for many, many years. So I know you have a focus in this area as well. Is that correct?
Yes, but the more I go into it, the more that I learn and develop and meet people from around the world, I've learned that mental health is a global issue. But I only started from the perspective that I grew up in, but I understand like the global crisis that we're in with when it comes to mental health.
Yes. I'm going to have you speak just a little closer to your phone. It's the signal's just a touch weak.
How's this sound?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you. Keep in mind, I'm an old man, even with hearing aids, which I don't even have. I'm somewhat, as we say in my generation, I'm deaf.
So, now I have headphones in too, so I just moved my mouth closer to the microphone. So I hope this is loud and clear.
This is perfect. Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and what it is you're looking to achieve.
And it's honestly, I just want to help. I want to serve. If you look at my logo, it's me bending over trying to help. And I started off trying to provide everything that I'm looking for. So anything that I've done or am currently doing is always because I've felt like it was a neglected area of my life. So, for example, I started my podcast, which is the Black Mental Health Podcast, because I felt like there was so many things going on within the community that builds trauma, and I know trauma leads to making bad decisions because you're not realizing what you're doing at the moment. And so I wanted to start the podcast because although I am a man, I'm not a woman. I really don't know some of the gripes of certain men. So I wanted to just get different areas and aspects of everyone within the community, as well as with my book, Suffering into Success, A Paradigm Shift for Struggle So You Can Achieve Happiness. That was just about how people want success, and sometimes their trauma holds them back, and I want them to use their trauma to push them forward. So embracing it so that way you can know that on the outside of it, it'll be a happier outcome. And to paraphrase it into something that people can understand is a diamond doesn't start out a diamond. It starts out as a piece of coal, and people die over getting them out of their minds, and it has to go through some heat, some pressure, some mining. It has to go through a lot of tumultuous things before it becomes a diamond. But what if people stop at the rock stage because the pressure gets so hot from the heat? Same thing with a cocoon and a butterfly. People want to go to want the fitness body, but don't want to go to the gym. We're all going to make it through this life with some type of pain, and
Yes.
people try to avoid it. And it's like you can't avoid it. All you can do is embrace it, knowing that, and turn it into a positive outcome on it. So that's a little bit about me, just trying to provide the needs that I thought that I should have.
Well, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. I work with a lot of people who are victims of trauma, and there's a difference between just going through something that's difficult and actually going through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've had trauma impact your life, it really affects how you view things.
Mm-hmm.
And to get the visual adjustment, like we go to the optometrist to get new glasses to help our focus be clearer, we have to look at those things. And I worked with a lot of men who've been incarcerated, and a lot of it had been trauma related. And I've learned it's not so much important to ask people where they come from as to ask them what's happened to them, and where are they coming from what happened to them. And a lot of times it's trauma from either absent father, absent mother, absent both, substance abuse in the home, or physical, mental abuse. And one of the biggest ones that I've had to deal with is a lot of ritualistic abuse, where people are abused with religion. And that really messes people up. So do you come from a traumatic background?
Traumatic, I would say yes, because I've identified with a few of the things and understand exactly the viewpoint of my father not being in my life. Even just being a first-generation American and just trying to create wealth, or growing up in the poverty-stricken area, seeing gunshots, seeing things that what I realized was it wasn't a normal thing. So growing up, certain things you identify as normal is not. And I've learned, like, through things like Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs,
right,
that if you don't have those things covered, then you can't even focus on those other things. So I never grew up with the basic levels, or at least all of them. My mother provided the best way she could, but I didn't have everything that could have propelled me to the success that I could have probably had at a young age. I always say that I'm still learning stuff that I should have been learned, or I felt like I should have known, and I didn't learn a lot of that stuff because it's a repetitive cycle of trauma that we grow up in different environments where things are okay that we didn't know was okay, that wasn't okay.
Yeah, I get that. Now, what area did you grow up in?
So I'm in Philadelphia currently. So it's 11 o'clock p.m. on my time right now. 11:15. And so I was in the I guess it would be considered the North Philadelphia islandy section of Philadelphia. So it wasn't too uncommon for me to hear gunshots at night, or hearing about a family member who died or went to jail, or just came home from jail and went back to jail. So just the impoverished area, and then it took for me to go to Shippensburg University, where I studied communication, where I was able to get experience or be able to see a different side of the world. Whereas it's like Amish people and people, I smell cow manure in the air, and I'm like, wait, what is this? This is not what I grew up in. But it exposed me, and a lot of the times within growing in these communities, it's exposure that you don't know what you don't know. So you're just in the darkness of what's really out there in the world, so you're only focused on certain things that don't honestly really matter at some point. But they shape who you are and how you make your decisions. And so just being exposed to different environments, different viewpoints and things like that made me realize that, oh, man, I wasn't supposed to see a gun at 6 years old or have one in my hand and find it in the house or stuff like that. You see, you know what I mean? So
yes,
those are some of the things that I realized was not good, but it didn't feel like it was wrong when I was growing up. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. And when you grow up around that violence and it seems common to you at the at the moment, it seems like, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be. And then you get out there and you find out, no, it's not the way it's supposed to be. I grew up in an alcoholic home and a lot of violence in that area. And when I found families where they actually were kind to each other, where they didn't throw things at each other, literally, knives and forks and such, that was something else. I had to do a lot of unlearning from where I came from. Now, you have a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's called Suffering into Success. It's available on Amazon as well as my website. But it came out of, again, a struggle that I had. And I realized that we're all going to go through some type of pain, and not even to the level of that where you need to go see a psychiatrist or psychologist or a therapist, but just some type of pain where it's going to force you to grow. And so I equate it to something like a woman being pregnant. They know that they're going to go through back pain, morning sickness, feet, swollen ankles, and I can't even imagine all of the other things that I will never be able to feel. But they know it's all worth it because of the baby at the end of it. And a lot of times where our struggles, we try to avoid the pain because of how bad it's going to feel, not realizing that pain is going to make you grow at the end of it. And it's going to be a reward at the end of it once you can get through that pain. So it was just me realizing that, oh, man, everybody should embrace these certain things that they're going through, or especially when you're trying to obtain success or obtain any goal, whatever your version of success is, and embrace it so that way you know that, believing that at the end of it, it'll all be worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And now, do you have a sort of a counseling practice sort of thing that you're doing, or what do you do as your outreach?
So for me right now, I've been speaking. I just came back from New York and speaking at a conference and talking about mental health, and then going into these schools, telling them and teaching them about, just learning to catch things early, because I feel like a lot of that stuff manifests into adulthood that should have been addressed into childhood. So on Tuesday, I just spoke with a young man, and he was just telling me everything that he was going through and some of the trials and tribulations that he was facing at home. And I'm like, you should talk to somebody. Like, you have to talk to somebody, a therapist. There's resources at this school, and you should go to them. And I know for a lot of the times it's because we don't have the correlation or the representation of somebody that can show you the outcome of it. We don't feel like we need to go through it. For example, with depression, anxiety, suicide, those words didn't exist in my vocabulary 5 years ago.
Sure.
It was something that was so far away from me that I'm like, I don't feel that. It wasn't until I connected definitions to the words that I was able to really get the help that I needed. And so I would correlate that to go back to your question of, I speak at the schools, and then I have a consulting company where I help companies, schools, and individuals, just get more aware of their mental health, personal development. I don't try to do it with therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists. That's people that went to school. They went and did the long form of addressing that situation and learning the facts, the figures and practices, and all the technical things that you need to learn. To put it simply, I'm more of like if Tony Robbins and Oprah had a baby, I would be that.
Well, Tony Robbins is going to feel funny about getting that child support notice. Speaking of child support, we are at our first commercial break, and for those of you tuning in, you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John on KCAA Radio, and my guest this evening is Mr. Reginald Howard, and we're going to be back in 2 and 2.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Hart Winery would like to remind their friends and customers that another holiday season is right around the corner, but for too many children it may turn out to be a less than joyous one. Open your hearts to the less fortunate children by dropping off a toy at one of the Toys for Joy drop-off points around town. This reminder from Hart Winery, family-owned and operated, serving the community since 1980. For one of Temecula Valley's oldest wineries and wines of exceptional quality, call 951-676-6300. That's 951-676-6300. Or visit heartfamilywinery.com. That's heartfamilywinery.com. Hart Family Winery, on the air because they care.
And welcome back. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. And my guest this evening is Mr. Reginald A. Howard, and he does a lot of work with, he's a mental health advocate, but he helps people discover some of the needs that they have, and he does speaking in the public and making people more aware of what the resources may be to get help and to get in touch with what I would call your true self. Would that be a good way to put it, Reggie?
You definitely summed it up good. I think you said it in the front of the show. It's just like, I just want to help, man. I was tired of people talking about the problems and everything that was going on, but nobody started to provide solutions.
Right.
And I just wanted to be able to be another avenue to provide solutions instead of adding to the problem.
Sure. Now, you made an interesting analogy. You said you were what would be the product of Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey getting together. And I really am trying to get that picture out of my mind. I'm sorry. I don't mind Oprah, but Tony Robbins a little bit kind of, gets to me a little bit. So how do you get booked? Do you speak at schools, just public events? How does that work?
So a lot of it is by chance, honestly. So I started out reaching out to schools and colleges, and people would bring me in. And let me backtrack. I started out with some of my relationships and people who knew of me and told them that I wanted to speak or I would be good. So people heard me on the podcast. They knew I was a good communicator within personal development and stuff like that. Then once I traveled into the mental health space, it just added the two and two together, along with my podcast, along with me speaking. Like, people wanted me to talk more and more about mental health. And so it's a lot of outreach. And I work with the National Alliance Against Mental Illness, NAMI, and they also put me in position to be in certain schools and talk to certain children and things like that. So it's a many different avenues.
Well, NAMI is a great organization. I happen to be on the board of directors for the National Council of Alcohol and Drug Dependence of East San Gabriel Valley and Pomona Valleys. And so we have some relationship between that organization and our organization. So that is a great organization to be part of. And you have a podcast. Now, for people who want to tune into the podcast, how would they do that?
It's on YouTube. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. It's on all podcasting platforms. And you can just type in Black Mental Health Podcast, and it'll pop up. And you can hear me interviewing different people. I just did, before the holiday break, in December, I just interviewed my family members and talked about our journey. So from my sister to my father and how we repaired our relationship, My mother and her being a immigrant from a different country, and us growing up, and my sister and our having our brother sister rivalry. So just getting a different family aspect, and I'm going to be traveling to season 3 within some upcoming weeks. So it's on the Black Mental Health podcast, and you can find it everywhere.
Oh, that's great. Now, you mentioned that your mother's from a different country. From where does she hail?
She's from Antigua and Barbuda, the home of 365 beaches. So if you ever want to go to some vacation, there's plenty to do there.
Wow, that's something else. And so, is this what you do full time, or is this something you do as a service of love? How does it work?
Both service of love. Just providing what I wish somebody provided me. And all the chips is down on it as far as I find a way to for my love of entrepreneurship as well within to it to weave it together. And I just started going to different schools and going in there and helping part time as well. I'm on the PTA of the school, so just trying to help as much as possible. And yes, full time to answer your question, plain and simple.
Well, I'll tell you, PTA can be a very interesting organization to get involved with. If you can stay out of the politics of PTA, it's really good. But sometimes the politics can really be difficult. I know those days from that, and I keep hearing a song in the back of my head, the Harper Valley PTA, and the people of my generation knows what that's all about. And some younger folks, you just have to YouTube that one, and you'll laugh. You'll enjoy the humor of that.
Yes, I just actually have was accepted to be on the board of directors at one of the schools within Philadelphia, Lindley Academy. So I'm just trying to attack it from all angles, honestly.
Wow, that's something else. So what is a message you'd like people to hear from you tonight about what you're doing and how this could be impacting their life?
So I'm on my speaking tour this year. The speaking tour is entitled "We All Help Heal." And when I went into the mental health space, or when I found myself in this space, I didn't want to come and step on the credibility of those who have went to the schooling and did their got their degrees and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it caused a bit of friction when I came in, because it's like, who is this guy to talk about mental health when we've done this years of research work and work? And I just wanted to combine the fact that we all help heal in our own way. Like we all contribute to the healing of other people, even from teachers to policemen to family members, friends, all the way up to God Himself. We all help heal, and you just have to be the person that either you're contributing to the healing or you're contributing to the chaos of the community. And I just wanted to put that message out that we all help heal.
Yes, and I think sometimes we get too caught up in the degrees. And I know that sounds funny from a guy who has a whole list of alphabet soup behind his name. However, alphabet soup cannot put empathy in your heart or love in your heart. And if we take ourselves too seriously and don't hear what the person's saying who we're speaking with, then the degrees have done no good. They can't teach us how to be good listeners, just good studiers. And so while I do believe in education, I also believe that that's not the only way to learn how to work with people. I'll give you an example of that. Years ago, my brother was the executive director of a place called Cedar House, also known as Social Science Services. And it was a residential program, a detox and residential program for men and women with drug and alcohol problems. And you would have people working with each other who hadn't gone through school, but they'd had a lot of life experience and getting into recovery. And they would go from being residents to being what's called applicates, where they would actually do some of the what we call lay counseling in there, because the people could relate to fellow drunks and addicts who had a solution on how to get through that. Would that sound sort of like where you're coming from?
100%. I look at it more so of like if you're a big sports fan, then you know that There are analysts who went to school and got degrees, and then there are analysts who played on the field and started to analyze.
Yes.
I feel like I'm a player who's starting to analyze.
Yeah, and that's legitimate. It's absolutely legitimate. Because you are bringing something to the game, using that analogy, that could be important for people because you're not just looking at statistics. You're able to share with the people that, hey, I've been here. I've been in this game. I know what it's like to take a hit. I know what it's like to have to get up when you're wounded. And so you have a great analysis from that point of view, particularly when I love it. We're coming up on Super Bowl Sunday. And you always hear people, well, he should have thrown it this way, he should have thrown it that way, and they've never been on the field. They have no idea what it looks like when you see these football players coming towards you, and you're just trying to survive, let alone get the ball off,
Right.
Take that from someone who once played center in school football, and I still hate the term Candace Center. So that's for another day, another show. So now, do you have an area you specialize in?
I always go down to is different levels of it. So of course I'm always speaking from a man's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm speaking from a black man's perspective,
That's
and then I'm speaking from a black community perspective. So it's always niching down into different levels and layers of what aspect and a part of myself that I want to get in tune with. And I can also speak from a first generation American perspective. So it's the different parts of me that I try to dive into. So I've only been black my whole life. So I can only speak from that point of view, but I can understand others' point of view by interviewing them or having conversations and able to project those viewpoints as well. That's why I try to.
Yeah.
That's the Oprah that comes out of me.
Well, sure, and I think we take for granted, particularly those of us who are Caucasian, and we're the lowest of the Caucasian in my family. We're Irish. And at one time that we got great prejudice. The only jobs that we could get were either janitors, fighters, or police officers and firemen. That was it. No one else would hire us for everything. In fact, there used to be signs in New York that say, help wanted, Irish need not apply. But when you look at society today, when I get pulled over by a police officer, I have a different experience than someone who is black or brown, and they get pulled over. Me, I'm worried about what size ticket I'm going to get and how much the fine might be, or if I'm going to be able to talk my way out of it. Where people of color, that's not the experience that they get. Am I going to get shot? What's going to happen? You want to talk about that a little bit, what that's like?
The level of anxiety that happens when a cop, and that's up until this day, where if a cop behind me, I'll literally either pull over and park until they pass by. Mind you, I'm legal. I have all my paperwork. I have everything I have the right to be in the road, but I literally just do not want the interaction with them. And I have family members who are police officers.
Sure.
So my aunt who potty trained me as a retired police officer, and
was that a gunpoint? I'm sorry.
It took me a while, but I caught it. But yes, and I love her to death. But she teach me, and I shout out Aunt Diane. But I just have a level of like panic of. I just want to minimize as much interaction with them as possible. I also have spoken to the police district in Philadelphia and told them or taught them my perspective of that and letting them understand the viewpoint of it. So it's just a level of fear where I've been driving. I've driven with, I don't even know, driven. There we go. That's the right word. I've driven with other people outside my race where they have the level of confidence of cursing a cop out, and I'm like, I would never.
Well, that's true. That's true. I've seen things in my lifetime that really blow me away, how from the different perspective and the different experience, how people react in different things. Being Eastern Orthodox, I am a married priest, and my wife, who's in Mexico right now. She's an American citizen, but she's originally from Mexico. And with all the stuff that had been going on the last few years with ICE and watching stuff, people that she knows, people that she loves dearly, people who are here legally, and even though they're citizens, getting deported just because of their brown skin and then having to prove their citizenship. And a lot of people don't know that that's going on. They think, oh, that's just, that. Well, we know people that that's happened to, and it's very painful. I can go down the street and ICE can go by. I don't have to worry about it. And even though my family history is Irish, none of us started out in this country unless you're Native American. And yet I have the luxury of knowing that I know for sure when I go to work in the morning, unless some terrible accident happens, I will get to go home that night and not have to worry about being caged in some detention center. It's awful. And until we learn the empathy of that with one another and realize people are really going through this, and the political mess we're in right now doesn't help because people are more into being right instead of being open to hearing other people's experiences. Have you had a lot of experience with that with your travels?
In what aspect? So I want to make sure I answer the question correctly.
Where people automatically assume you have certain points of view or attitudes or certain ideas because of the color of your skin.
100%. To be honest with you, I almost wanted, because I have dreadlocks, and I almost wanted to cut them off to not have certain preconceived judgment before I go into certain rooms.
Oh yeah.
But I wanted to make sure I still represented who I was, so I kept them because I didn't want to feel like I didn't want to have to be in a room where I had to feel like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it exists all the time, and sometimes you can feel it. It's a feeling more than an actual thing. Sometimes, like you can feel the eyeballs or the certain conversation. I was just speaking at an event, and I don't know what the person said, but I felt like it was more of a racist remark, and I because I am whom I am, I don't take everything personally, but I understand that certain people are going to have certain viewpoints, and I can't do nothing about that. All I can do is share my perspective and my viewpoint, but I can't change but so much a person's viewpoint. They may live and die with that viewpoint, and there's nothing I can do about it. People are allowed to have their opinion. And so I just choose to use my platforms, my voice, my whatever I'm doing to try to change the narrative, the paradigm around certain ideas, and to open communication up between both sides and both parties. There's certain people I know that are black who would never talk to police officers, who would never even engage or interact with them, which is that they have the all right to do that. But I also know that lack of communication doesn't cause for solutions. And so I just try to tread that middle line of communicating, but not feel like I'm degrading myself or the culture and community that I come from when I talk to other people who have different ideas than I had.
It's interesting you say that. And before we go to our next commercial break, in Claremont, which is a city I live in here in California, one of the things that the police department has started doing a few years ago, which I really like, is they have a program they usually do it during the summer, and it's called Have Coffee with a Cop. And the police officers come out, and they're at like Starbucks, different places like that, and you sit down and you have coffee with them, and you talk one-on-one. And they get to know the people, and you get to know the police officers as people, because they figure the best way to have good community policing is to know that the police aren't trying to get you, which is some cities that doesn't work because there are some problems with some law enforcement. So I really take my hat off to Claremont Police and trying to do something and address this head on and saying, yes, we need to communicate because a lot of bad things are happening. Speaking of communications, we're coming up to our next commercial break. Freddie's looking at me through the glass like he's going to take a baton to me if I don't hurry up and get off air here for a second. So you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John. My guest this evening is Reginald A. Howard, and we'll be back in 2 and 2.
loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
It's time to say see you later, alligator, to embarrassing and troublesome issues with your skin, nails, and hair with all-natural Cayman alligator oil. Cayman oil is locally made, right in Louisiana, where people have been using alligator oil for centuries to treat all kinds of ailments. A drop a day of Cayman oil can help you say, see you later, alligator, to athlete's foot, nail fungus, acne, eczema, rashes, dry skin, cuts, infections, MRSA, scars, burns, sunburns, and even ingrown hair and dandruff. If you or someone you know is tired of suffering with any of these skin, nail, and hair troubles, you need to visit mycayman.com to learn more about 100% natural, non-toxic, hypoallergenic Cayman oil and get a bottle today. Say see you later, alligator, with Cayman alligator oil at mycayman.com. That's mycayman.com. mycayman.com.
And welcome back. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM. We're on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. And just a shout out to our great engineer, Freddie. How you doing tonight, Freddie?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I appreciate you being here tonight. You know, a lot of you don't know that this guy's a great musician. He's quite the drummer, from what I've been told. And he must be a drummer because he's always telling me to beat it. So thanks for being here tonight, buddy. And tonight my guest is Reginald A. Howard, and he is an advocate for mental health. And he's a public speaker, author of a book, and also a podcast host. So as we're into our last segment, what are some words of encouragement that you can give to some people who are trying to find their way through the time of trauma that they may have been raised with?
So I heard a recent quote the other day that really touched the spirit of me because it really put the power back into your hands as an individual. So a lot of people, a lot of their causes of their trauma is through the fact of the parent pool that they were the parents who they were gifted with, I'll say. And a lot of times our trauma comes from the fact that our parents just didn't raise us the way that we could have been raised. They wasn't the worst, they wasn't the best, but they wasn't the way that we would have liked it to be raised. And the quote that I heard the other day was, you couldn't change your parents, but you get to pick your children's parents. And that's how you change the trajectory of trauma.
Oh, that's a great way of looking at it.
A lot of the times is we repeat these cycles over and over and then wonder why that nothing changes. Well, we had the opportunity to change and break the cycle, but we picked people that fulfilled the same things that we didn't like. You know what I mean? So
sure.
That would be the words of encouragement I was saying is like you get to pick the parents of your children. So if at that least point, that's more of the power in your hands to not let your children feel the things that you felt.
Well, there's another part of that, too, I'd like to touch on, if you don't mind. And that's the fact that when we don't deal with our own trauma and we don't work on the things that are inside of us, our belief systems, what I call the BS, our belief systems, we can't help but attract into our lives the same people that damaged us. In fact, studies have shown that we don't attract alike and we don't attract opposite. We attract what we think we deserve on a subconscious level. And we can be in the Coliseum in LA, and there'll be 50,000 people there, and the one person's antenna will go up, and then the other person's antenna will go up, and they'll find each other in that crowd because they connect. But once we start working on those wounds and getting down to causes and conditions, it changes the frequency, and now we can attract healthier people into our lives so we can have better situations for the children. Otherwise, there's an old expression. In fact, I just put this on Facebook, I think the last week, that until we learn our lesson from the experience, we must re-experience the lesson, but when history repeats itself, the price goes up. And so I think it is important with what you're talking about, and I agree with you, that each of us look at the traumatic events in our life, not for blame, but to get down to causes and conditions, because at some point, these people are no longer abusing us from the outside, but we take on their abusive messages on the inside, and we carry on where they left off. You get where I'm coming from with that?
100%. That's exactly. It sums it up perfectly. Because we don't realize that you attract what you attract, and I've heard about the law of attraction, and people think it's an osmosis thing, but magnets attract other magnets. So if you don't like what you're attracting, then it's something about you that you need to change.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely agree with that. And we have an expression: everyone's responsible, no one's to blame. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to look at, because as long as we're, where I come from, we have an expression: when you're pointing your finger at one person, you have three fingers coming back at you. And so we have to get out of who's right and into what's right. And what's right is we're all deserving of dignity, we're all deserving of love, and we're all deserving to be given a chance. And we don't all start off even. You talk about where you come from, particularly being first generation in this country. There are things that you go through that are real different than what I went through, because my family's been here a few generations, and so we've had a little chance to acclimate in that way. And still, there's some areas where we're real different from other people as well because of the alcoholism and such in my family. So yeah, I feel what you're saying with that. And talk just a little bit about your book, if you would. Let people know so that they have an idea what they'd be looking for when they look for it on Amazon.
Well, one of the quotes from the book that a lot of people like is, you have to turn your failures into fixtures. And your failures are building blocks to things that you needed to learn along the way. So, for example, I went to mechanical school at Lincoln Tech and learned about fixing cars. I never finished the school, but I got a toolbox. And now, through that toolbox, I've been able to fix things in my house. I've been able to fix things within other people's homes, just in general, fix things on my car. But I failed at the school technically because I didn't finish. But I was able to grab these tools along the way. Sure. So for myself, I just try to find whatever I feel like I failed at. What can I take from this and apply it to something else? Like, I started a virtual assistant company where I was supposed to be working online to be assistant to business owners, and just doing the administrative work for them. But it just gave me too much of a headache because I just wasn't able to do it because it just was too inefficient. But I was able to learn how to make a website by doing that. Oh. I was able to learn about cold calling and just different things that you gather within that realm. So now I can make websites for the rest of my life, but it would look like, you failed at one particular aspect. And I don't look at anything. I always try to look for the lessons so that way it can be the building block of me moving forward.
I like that idea. I really do. And real quickly again, give the name of the book one more time for the listeners. Nice and slow, because I know some of them are writing it down. The name of the book is?
Suffering into Success, a paradigm shift of struggle so you can achieve happiness.
That's a great title, and it's available on Amazon. which is good. I encourage you to get there. Now, if they would like to be in touch with you, are there some ways that some of the listeners can get in touch with you?
Yes, I found out I'm Googleable. So if you type my name in Google, everything about me and where I'm at will pop up. But I made it easier for everyone too. So my everything from my email to my website is all the same thing. So I'm ReginaldAHoward.com, ReginaldAHoward@gmail.com. If you want to send an email, and then Reginald A. Howard on all social media platforms. So it's pretty simple, pretty easy if you want to look me up.
See, mine, all mine had to go with rockandpriest.com. I'm just kidding. People are going to go to that one. It's probably some weird site, and I'm going to get some letters on that one. I should have checked that out before I said it, huh? So, well, this is great. Well, I appreciate having you on the show tonight. This has really been terrific, and I think what you're doing is very important. It sounds like you have a powerful message to give to people, and I'm glad you're in different schools and part of some great organizations that are helping to get you out there. Because if people don't know who you are and get introduced to you, then they're really deprived of the greatness that you're bringing with you. And I love the fact that you're coming from the perspective of your heart rather than the perspective of this is what you have to do. Instead, this is my experience, and if you can benefit from it, that is terrific. And so that's a great way to come from it. I wish more people had that attitude with it. And so thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to do some things regarding for the show for some of the listeners, and we hope to have you again sometime in the future. And in the meantime, I wish you the best in everything you're doing. Okay?
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate the platform and any opportunity to share my experience. I always say I'm an expert in my own experience, and that's all I try to share. And I appreciate any opportunity that is provided to me to spread a message of peace and positivity. So, again, thank you. It's much appreciated from my end.
Thanks for being on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, our guest this evening has been Reginald A. Howard. And do look up his book. And he's easy to find on Facebook and such. So, by all means, be in touch with him. And we'll talk again soon, my friend. Now, for the rest of the listeners, lots going on in our communities right now. And I just want to remind you that with everything going on, the most important gift we can give each other is the gift of hope. And I think sometimes we forget that, and we get so caught up in particularly on Facebook right now. And I know some of you are watching me live on Facebook. And I just want to remind you that, look, it's a very difficult platform, and the fact that people will say things on Facebook that they won't say face to face. And we need to get past some of that. We need to start coming together. Some of you know I took a little break from Facebook for about a week because I just couldn't take the anger I was seeing everywhere. And I suspect I'm not the only one feeling it. It's like we've lost part of our humanity and our respect for one another. I truly mean it when I say that every one of us deserves dignity. That's a birthright. In fact, Pope Francis, even though I'm Eastern Orthodox, I look to see where I can learn from all my brothers and sisters from all different denominations of the Christian faith and other faiths as well. We all have a lot to exchange with one another. And I was just reading his book, The Joy of the Gospel, and he's writing about the fact that each one of us is born with the right to dignity. It's in there. It's our birthright. And those of us who claim to be of a religious denomination that's supposed to teach about love, it's so important that we start practicing that love. It's so easy to type stuff that's really, really kind of nasty on Facebook and other platforms, but you can't take it back once it's out there. And I've made that mistake before. I've gotten where I was very angry with something that somebody said, and I popped off a post, and I later regretted it. A wise person once said, "Argue when you're angry. Speak up when you're angry, and you'll make the greatest argument you'll ever regret." And I've done that. If we could, instead of react, learn to act. What do I mean by that? Where you're seeing hate spread, try to bring a little kindness. St. Francis had that right when he talks about in his prayer that, where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. And we can do that for each other. God gives each of us that power, and that power that's in us is God itself. And that it doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter what your background is. We have that same spirit in us, because if God is not in all of us, God's in none of us. And if God's in one of us, God's in all of us. But how we do anything is how we do everything. And all of us have a point of view. And so if we can move from just having that point of view into a wider scope, part of our guest talked about the paradigm shift. That's a paradigm shift to recognize that other people are every bit as worthy of love as we are. And we always say, well, when they respect me first, I'll respect them. No, that's opposite. Let's go out and respect one another. If they respect us back, that's just a plus. But we need to go out there and give love, not demand it. And I'll say this before we come to the end of tonight's show, and that is, and you've heard me say it many times, that love is a divine paradox. When we go out to get, we come back empty. When we go out to give, we come back overflowing. So I hope this week you go out and give as much love as you can. While you're at it, I want to remind you to buy a copy of my book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and most online bookstores. And also be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And drop me some notes. I enjoy it. And for those of you who listen all around the world, thank you. And also, because this is a listener-supported program, thank you everyone who's been contributing at viewpointwithfatherjohn.com. And next week, I look forward to being with you again. And if no one told you this week that they love you, let me be the first. And please, be safe and be good to one another out there. We'll see you next week. God bless.
It's time for NBC Radio News on KCAA Loma Linda, brought to you by